I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria. I came from a close-knit family, even though I came from a poor family. But they gave me education with the instruction that this is the tool that will help me to dig my way out of poverty and ignorance. I came without a dime in my pocket. All I had was big dreams, determination to succeed, and the resilience. So coming from another country gave me that insight to be able to understand and deal with people from different backgrounds.
I was walking into Kroger to pick up a prescription for my mom. Upon approaching the pharmacy, I slipped and fell in some liquid. I went to see my regular doctor, and that is when I knew that there was more going on from that fall. I then called Mr. Olawale, talked to him and let him know what was going on. I could just say that he's very professional and knowledgeable about what he does. He's very passionate about what he does, and he cares about his clients. I felt like I was a part of the Olawale family.
The goal is to make sure that our clients will leave feeling that someone gets them, knowing that someone was able to be the voice for them.
We needed an attorney because we needed somebody who understood the relationship between our case and the law. We had been through 4 different lawyers. We were very desperate. We knew from what we had heard that Emmanuel Olawale was the man, who could take us through that experience and see us through and give us the kind of outcome we're looking for. For him, your case is personal. He gave us hope. He gave us encouragement, and we knew that we had found the right man that would see us through.
Just know that when you're coming through the door, you're coming in through a place where you will be accepted and welcome as family, where you'll be seen as a person. At the Olawale Law Firm, we get you. We understand you. Trust us. Welcome to another episode of Legal Angle with Emmanuel the Law Olawale. And I have with me today Anna Botkin-Doty. She's an attorney that advocates for the right of LGBTQ people. And she's been, she went to my law school, Capital University Law School. But I'm not going to say much about her. I'll let her introduce herself to us. Can you please tell us more about yourself, and welcome to the show?
Thank you so much for having me, Emmanuel. It is great to be back with you, even if virtually. My name is attorney Hannah Botkin-Doty. I am born and raised here in Columbus, Ohio. I went to private schools all growing up, Christian schools. My mom was a pastor. My dad was a salesman. And between the two of them, I got the gift of gab, and I'm a lawyer. I did go to Capital University undergrad and got my degree in sociology, criminology, and a minor in military science. After leaving the Army, I went on to law school at Capital University and focused my degree on child and family law and women and minorities in the law. So I started my practice about 10 years ago with a focus on the LGBTQ plus community. I myself have been married to my wife, Kristen, for 11 years now. We've been together for more than that. And then we have just, in the last 2 months, brought a foster child into our home, a 12-year-old boy, who is keeping me very busy indeed. So I am just thrilled to be here to share some updates about some things that have been going on in the judiciary and the legislature here in Ohio and then across our country with regards to the LGBTQ community. So thank you for the opportunity to have this platform. And I really appreciate you creating this space where we can talk about these important issues.
Thank you for coming. And what was it like growing up in Westerville, Ohio?
Well, small, white. My brother and sister and I'm a middle child. I have an older sister, Emily, and a younger brother, Gabriel. And we grew up in the schools that were attached to the churches. So when we weren't at church, the church was at our house or we were at Christian school. So we were a very small knit community. But when I went off to college and joined the Army ROTC, I began to understand why Christian abstinence and waiting till marriage was quite so easy for me, because I found none of the boys attractive. And then it all just kind of came out literally out of nowhere. I actually had to leave the Army because of Don't Ask, Don't Tell back in 2008. And ended up meeting my wife while I was in undergrad. So a lot of really crazy things happened, but Westerville has always been the same. And actually, we've moved back here to raise our family. I live just on the other side of Cleveland Avenue now, but I still go to the same pool, and the old golf course is now MI Homes. But fortunately, MI Homes is also building a school that my kid can go to next year. So we're not too shady into that, but yeah, it's been wonderful. It's a small community, a lot of really, old trees and old families, and it's been good to come home.
Yeah, wow. So, when did you realize that you were attracted to the same sex? And how
Oh,
was that for you?
it's a great question. I mean, there's attraction, and then there's like sexual attraction. So I'll say I've always been more comfortable around women very early on. And no offense, Emmanuel, I began to understand that men were the issue and most of the problems in our world. So I was like, oh, let me just steer clear of that. And boys were never really that interesting. They were always kind of dumb and acting a fool. So whatever. But I never had an emotional or romantic connection to a girl until I reached college. And that blew my mind up, because not only was I raised in a, Christian conservative family, but I was also in the Army. And so all of this was a bad idea. But it was also one of those things that felt kind of like inevitable, like gravity. It's like, oh, that's why, and that makes a lot of sense, actually. And it's one of those things where when I did finally come out, I was about 17. A lot of people were like, oh yeah, we knew. Oh yeah. I'm like, you could have told me any point in time, but it turned out to not be okay. I was still living at home at the time, even though I was in college, and my mother was a pastor, and she actually believed that I had a demon inside of me and that it needed to come out. And she exorcised me with some other pastors from the church just to try and help me, because that's what she thought love was. So it was a hard time. I eventually ended up leaving my home, being houseless for a while, and being dropped off at my grandmother's home on my dad's side. So I went to live with my Nona, and she has been married and divorced 4 times and fails to see the common denominator, but I'm not going to point it out to her. But she was about 65 and I was 17 when I moved in. So it was very much a meeting of the worlds. But she helped raise me and actually paid the bill to the Army and the United States Treasury when they asked for their money back after they outed me and kicked me out. So, and then helped me fund law school. So I owe a lot of who I am today to her. And I just saw her for Skyline on Tuesday. So, it's one of those things where these women in my life have just come into play and been such a strength for me. So my mother passed away a couple years ago of illness, and I've forgiven her long since, and I've accepted what she limitedly understood about me and about my community. And I've given, as a 2-month mother, I've been giving her a lot of grace, having just seen how hard it is to raise a child, let alone 3 children. So it's been a homecoming in a lot of ways, becoming a mom and then realizing just how much there is to protect.
I can only imagine. What was that moment like for you to tell your parent about your sexuality, and knowing that they are pastors who doesn't believe in homosexual relationship?
Well, to be fair, Emmanuel, I didn't tell my mother. She found a copy of a DVD called something, I can't remember. It was a British film, and like 2 girls were holding hands on the cover. And I had my own little like TV set down there with the built-in DVD and VHS player, and she found that, and she confronted me about it. And she asked me if I'd ever had feelings for girls, and I expressed that I had. I never acted on anything because I was still considered myself Christian at that point. And then she prayed teach me how to attract men and how to dress and how to walk, and would like walk up to men and have conversations with me there and then walk away and like leave me. So like she literally did what she could, but after she realized it wouldn't take, I got woken up one morning to her taking down my posters and my, books and stuff. And I remember thinking, oh, this is it. Okay, this is it. So she started throwing clothes in the duffel bag, and I went upstairs to run to my purse and get out my house keys because I was going to throw it at her. I was going to be like, I'm leaving. And as I was going through my little ring, just like, I'm going to get her. I'm going to show her. And it took me about 2 or 3 times before I realized that she had taken the key off my key ring for me. And I was no longer able to get back into what had always been my home. So how did it feel? Horrifying. My dad and my mom were divorcing at that point, so he actually wasn't in the home. He was living with his new wife in Cleveland. So my dad, I told my dad, I'm like, Mom's kicking me out because I'm gay. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. But then nothing. So I was dropped off on the front porch of my grandmother's house. She handed me my first glass of brown liquor and said medicinal purposes, and I threw it back, which I now know today was scotch, which I still do not have a taste for. And I went and laid on her bed and slept until it was nighttime. And then from then on, I lived with Nona.
I'm sorry you have to go through that. Did you have any support from the community you have established with people, from the church community
The
that you've
church community?
been? Yes, did you have any support?
No, it was the community that would come and lay hands on me and try to rid me of the demon. Like, for example, Emmanuel, my mom said that the gay demon has a lisp, which is why gay men lisp and straight men don't. That's how you can tell if they have the demon inside of them, which is complete crap. But it fit her worldview, right? That it wasn't my fault or her fault that I was gay. It was a demon. And it's nothing to do with fault. And frankly, the community did not help me or did not come around me. And that's just a reality of the fact that they're in that love the sinner, hate the sin area, which I won't tolerate. Right. So in the LGBT community, we talk a lot about tolerance and acceptance, but to me, like, tolerance is here, like neutrality is here, acceptance is here, and celebration is here. I will not accept anything less than celebration of who I am. So you can keep your acceptance and tolerance and loving the sinner and hating the sin, because you're not doing anything but making people hate themselves more. And that's definitely not what Christ was here to do. Because there's a difference between the faith and the faithful. I like to say that I have faith, but it's been the faithful that have driven me from the church. It's so difficult to talk about the Bible or the law with people, because they're like, oh, the Bible is the, God-breathed word. I'm like, yes, it is. But if you can't talk to me about the Council of Nicaea, I don't want to talk to you about the books in the Bible, because unless you can specifically say this circle of men picked what the books are going to be, unless you can discuss that, the editing, the translation over time, until and unless you are able to discuss that with me, I don't want to talk to you about the God-breathed word, because not one of us was there when it was written. So, and the sum of the commandments of this: love one another, not tolerate, love one another, be good to one another. And that's what I'm here to do. That's what I focus my practice around. And that's what you focus your practice around: leaving people better than we found them, and going to communities and going to places where people are desperate. That's what your intro said. We were desperate, and saying, I will extend a hand down the ladder and bring you with me, because there is no victory, there is no celebration until we are all at the party.
Love one another. Yeah. And you attended a Christian middle school, a Christian high school, raised by a pastor, raised to think that who you are as a person is in itself a sin. How were you able to reconcile that, finding that this is who you were born to be?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's difficult, right? Like that's our life calling, is to figure out why we're here and who we are born to be, and chisel away at the pieces that are us and get to the part that is immortal, right? The part that's going to last forever. Some people do that with faith. People do that with football and drinking, just putting away parts of themselves they don't want to pay attention to. But your question was, how did I reconcile the fact that I have been told that my existence is worthy of hell with the idea that my birthright is an entrance to heaven, right? How do I, as an attorney, reconcile it? The answer is I struggle with it daily. I believe that we work out our salvation with fear and trembling. We every day earn our salvation, whether that's walking the spider outside, letting the person cross the street, handing the homeless guy $1. That is your faith in action. So that is how I reconcile it. Not with who you say I am, or how you define me, or how you limit me to these 5 freaking letters of the alphabet. I do not limit myself. My opportunity to impact this world for good is limitless. Every time I sit down at a fast food restaurant, can I say, can I talk to your manager and tell them how good you were? Impact for good. You know, we all have this opportunity. And so long as you as an individual, gay, straight, pansexual, non-sexual, in a wheelchair, running marathons, you have the opportunity to impact people for good. And if that's not faith, if that's not a belief in a higher power, in a future, in a hope, then I don't know what is. And that's how I work it out. I tell myself I may not be, you know, written into your Bible or your Constitution, but I do very much exist, and you will very much hear me before I go. And if I can put one arm around someone else's shoulder and magnify them and give them a platform the way you're giving me a platform, then that's honestly all we can do, is to elevate and support each other.
All we can do is to elevate and support each other. And coming out, accepting who you are, you gained a new community, and also you lost a community.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that loss and gain at the same time? But let's talk about the loss first.
Poorly. So I lost my roots, essentially. I had spent my whole life in a Christian environment down to my household, you know, and I was essentially cut off from my roots, kind of like you were when you left your home and showed up here without a dime. I showed up on the scene without a dime, but you do have your personality, your intentionality, your will. And I was accepted by the community that I was thrust into, of, you know, mutual outcasts. A lot of times we say that the LGBTQ community has chosen family because we are bound together by mutual suffering and compassion and an endurance. You will not find a more compassionate person than a homeless Latina trans woman who's been on the streets. She's got a dime for you, sis. She's got everything for you. But like one white man coming out of a vehicle doesn't have a care. Like it's the thing where Jesus was sent to the, if we keep talking about religion, and I know this is a law podcast, but I hope you bear with me. Jesus went to the outcasts and he drew his apostles from the thieves and the fishermen and the prostitutes. And I mean, Jesus wasn't partying in the churches. He was not. He was flipping tables. He was partying with the people. So that's where I invest in myself. I immediately went in law school to the Gay Straight Alliance, the Capital Equality Alliance. We got together with the Ohio State Law School, Moritz folks, because they have way more money than we did. We have a beautiful resource in Stonewall, Columbus here. We have Equitas, which is doing amazing transgender name change clinics. We have Kaleidoscope, which works with teenagers and children, and you know, so many other organizations that are focused on our community that have the resources and time and ability to do that, but they don't have the platform. And you know, our community may not have transportation, or our community may not have bus fare, or our community may not have gas money, or you know, the ability to even get there, or their name might be wrong and they don't want to sign Teresa when their name is Tom. You know, it's like There's so many barriers, and the same in the immigrant community, to representation, to justice. And as you and I know, justice delayed is justice denied. So if we can provide access that much quicker, if we can familiarize the courts with forms so that they change their name change packet from reason for name change to check here gender identity, if we can make that progress and open those doors wider, reflection of the blessing that we've already begun, and those ripple effects and that karma and that faith and action is going to help pave the path to our future reward.
Faith and action can help with the future reward. When did you realize that you wanted to become a lawyer?
Well, I was told I was laying hands on and blessed as a pastor. So this is my pulpit, babe. This is it. My dad was a salesman. He says everybody's in sales. Doesn't matter where you work. And I was an evangelist's daughter. Like, we would go out and knock on doors and preach Jesus. So I have no problem talking to strangers, period. And I always say, I think a stranger is a friend I haven't met yet. And I always treat people like that. I'm like, hey, how are you doing? And everyone's like, have we met? And my wife is like, no. But all that to say, it really is interesting to think back and think that my calling was to be a pastor, and was a pastor, but a teacher and an educator, and somebody who you listen to their words and try to apply them to your life. So I say that I give advice and counsel. I also say that my representation comes with friendship. You're welcome, and I'm sorry, because I don't stop caring about you or your case just because the clock says it's 5 p.m. And I also say I'm the lesbian of accountability, which is something I hope to get embroidered on a robe someday. But the buck stops here. The courts are a great equalizer in that everyone has to come to the table. Everyone has to provide information. You have to provide discovery if we ask for it. You don't get to walk away. You don't get to ignore us anymore. And that's a real powerful thing, not only for people in a legal situation, but people in general, to be allowed to step into an arena where an answer is coming, good, bad, or indifferent. Sometimes the wait can be the worst part. And to then, as a counselor, as an advisor, as a friend, I think that's what a pastor should be in a lot of ways, is someone that you can look to that is going to come to you with compassion, but also with accountability, and say, yes, I'm going to meet you where you are. I'm going to hold space for you. I'm going to let you have some catharsis here, but we are not leaving this space without a plan forward. Or we are not leaving this space without you using this kernel of suffering for growth. Because otherwise you'll just internalize it and it'll fester and suffer and ooze. And that is no way to live your life or treat your babies or have compassion on your friends. You got to do the work on you first. And if you're suffering and if your desperation is not being used for your benefit, then it is wasted. And what are you doing it for?
We have to live our life with compassion and accountability. What a way to practice.
I know I'm saying a lot of stuff, but I'm out here eating mac and cheese and doing the most. So do not understand. I am on my own journey, and I am surrounded by people who are living the example as well, yourself included, Emmanuel. This Legal Angle podcast presentation is just such a cool place to be. So thank you for having the conviction to create it.
Thank you. And what was law school like for you as a gay person?
As a gay person, it wasn't really relevant. I mean, except for I was in law school while Obergefell, the LGBT gay marriage decision, was in the Supreme Court and in the appeals court. And of course, Jim Obergefell is from Cincinnati, Ohio. And he's actually, where is, oh yeah. This is me. That's me back in law school, or just out of law school, with Jim and the two moms and little baby Rose. Anyway, the moms were appealing the fact that they couldn't both be on a birth certificate together, even though they were married. And Jim's partner had just died, and he was appealing that he couldn't be on the death certificate, right? So both of their cases were up in the courts. And that was like the week before June 2015 when it all came down. And it was positive for same-sex marriage. So having these debates in law school, I guess, is probably the only place where me being gay really came out, besides being asked to be in leadership roles across boards, because a lot of people want diversity and inclusion. And that includes, adding one person of color to their board and one gay person to their board. So we can do better. But that was my experience to an extent. However, when we were in con law class and talking about the originalism versus, something else, or if we were in property law class talking about dower, and do you have a right to live in the house that your spouse died in if you weren't married, or what is a community marriage, what is a marriage if the person changes gender, like all of these things have question marks at the end, and people would just go, Hannah, and I would have to, as the token, right, be the voice. And that's a place that I'm okay being. I've adapted that, obviously, but I can't tell you how many times people have been like, oh, it's a gay thing. Hannah, you're the gay, say the gay thing. And I'm on boards now where we're trying to sort that out, because yes, I am a gay woman, proud, loud, all of it, but I'm also a lot of other things, and that lends itself to the credibility that comes with whatever I say. So yes, it was a struggle in law school. It is kind of still a struggle in any legal capacity, because it's hard to take a stand and be like, yes, I'm the gay one.
Yeah, because I think you're also a cultural and religious bridge based on your background. You were raised a Christian school, Christian parents, and here you are finding who you are at the age of 17. So you become that bridge that understands both sides. You were raised to be a pastor. Now you are being someone advocating for the other side. You are like a Saul becoming a Paul.
I like that. Thank you.
Yeah. And whichever side you find yourself on, you go at it with your heart.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my my legal logo. It's a heart with the scales of justice, and it's supposed to look like a hug, but my tagline is legal help with heart, because that's all I've ever had, is just my heart on my sleeve. And I've taken time over the last 10 years to steer myself away from contested matters for the most part, and try to work with people on building something, whether it's an estate plan or, a name change or surrogacy or a family. I'm trying to work on putting my heart into things that are growth based. And that's been really helpful for my mental health.
And you just described Obergefell that came out in 2015, which is the landmark ruling giving same-sex people the right to get married and most other rights that have been denied to them for generations. How did you feel when that decision came out that year?
Oh, it was a holiday. So yeah, the freedom to marry was really the hallmark thing, right? Like, this is what we get. But what we got was equal protection under the law, which includes over 1,000 federal and state rights, from Social Security to taxes to everything, anything, so many things. So it was a huge decision. I think I actually was at a watch party at Union, which is a restaurant and bar in downtown Columbus. And I'll kind of pause there. So we don't really have churches or stadiums or, things like that. We have bars. That's really where our community meets. Unfortunately, the liquor and cigarette industry has embraced us and has done a very good job of trying to soothe the wounds of the community with liquor and alcohol. And we have a real hard time. It's very much a part of the community. Partying is a part of the community. That's how you meet. That's how you engage. And it's hard for introverts, frankly. But like over the last, I think 20 years, we've done a better job of being more community based. But for so long, before our families were accepted, we were really restricted to these bars and clubs. But now that we have the permission to get married and our parentage can be established through the juvenile court, or through adoption, or through surrogacy, now that we have these protections, now you're seeing groups like the Family Pride Network, which is a nonprofit through Stonewall Columbus that just had a Pathways to Parenthood event. And you know, they have parades and they have reading hours and they have cookie days, and like we're incorporating our families into our spaces now. But to answer your question, I was at a bar and the decision came down with one vote between yes and no. And it just erupted. Everyone was weeping, screaming, crying, laughing, hugging. People were in the streets. I mean, it was a whole. I even feel, even now I feel it. It was a release. It was an affirmation that we were citizens in every capacity, and that our choice about who we not only emotionally but legally entangle ourselves with is vital to our capacity as individuals, as citizens, as Americans. Everyone else had already done it. We finally took the message. So, but I mean, it was a battle. It's the same battle we're having with voting rights. It's the same battle we're having with Dobbs and abortion. It's states' rights versus federal rights, and states' rights tend to be conservative because the white men of the world have done a very good job gerrymandering themselves into power, and the federal rights tend to be more liberal because they encompass the rest of the country, not just Ohioan Americans, but also Californian Americans, Maryland Americans. Everyone has a capacity to be heard. So that's why the Supreme Court's so vital, and why Trump being able to pack it with people who are not keeping the Constitution in heart has been so devastating and will continue to devastate us for generations.
Thank you. And what or who inspired you to start your law practice straight out of law school?
Poverty. No, I had a law partner that we started our practice and worked for 5 years together. She was very introverted, very quiet, very business, and I was me. So she would send me out into the bars and the bar clubs and associations and places, and I'd bring back clients and we'd work on them together. And then she'd do the back of the house and we'd all pay bills. But it got to a point where I was laying on the ground because I couldn't answer one more email, because I was so depressed. I was so overwhelmed. I was so burnt out. And I went to her and I said, I need to talk to you. I need to have a conversation with you about what's going on and next steps. And she said, well, I'm busy today. I'm busy tomorrow, maybe next week. And I said, okay. And at this point, I had had a couple other job offers. And so I accepted a job offer at another law firm and actually worked for them for about 2 years. And after the first year, I was able to print a report on Clio to demonstrate that I had brought in like this much money and was being paid this much money, and that the partners had brought in this much money and were being paid this much money. And so I asked for the opportunity to keep more of my earnings, basically. And instead, they took away my ability to run that report. So I left there. I actually stopped practicing law altogether and gave up all my clients because I was so burnt out. I thought it was the only way besides killing myself that I could get free of all the entanglements and cases. And so I went and worked for the Bar Association, but the president of the Bar Association was so threatened by me that she had me run out of there within 6 months. And then I went to work at CASA, which is the Court Appointed Special Advocates for Abused and Neglected Children. And I worked there for 6 months before I actually left at the start of 2022 and started my own practice again, just on my own. And I was always one of those, the grass is always greener on the other side kind of people. But now I realize that the grass is greener where you water it. So here I am trying to make rain.
Thank you. And you decided to focus on advocating for LGBTQ community.
Yeah. My mom would call them probably the least of these, until I told him it was the gays. But like the LGBT community includes people that have been so downtrodden, ignored, forgotten, abused, neglected. And if there is a least of these that we are meant to help according to our Lord, then this surely must be it. A Latina woman of color who wants to have her name correct and her gender correct, then let me pick me. I volunteer. Like I want to help. And I always tell people I'm here to make a living, but I'm here to make a difference. And you have grace with me. I'm not trying to get $3.50 an hour. I'm flat fee only. I do not accept hourly rates because I feel like it just isn't fair. And if I can talk to you and come to an understanding that this is going to take longer and cost more, we need to come to that understanding. But that doesn't mean you have to put up a $3,000 retainer right now. That means you give me $100 from your check every month, and we'll just keep tabs. Like, I'm not here to take food out of your baby's mouth. I'm here to help you and leave you better than I found you. And if you're starving while I'm doing it, then I'm not doing it. And that's not the kind of karma that I want. So I've forged a practice around helping people as best I can. And that includes like virtual notarization. So I don't have to go to your house, or you don't have to come to my house. And, Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, Facebook Pay, Apple Pay, Google Pay, anything, whatever people are able to give you. I got paid in pickles the other day, sliced and dill. So I'm living my best life. I'm blessed.
You're blessed. Can you tell us about second parent determination?
So in how do I start this? So there are two courts that have the authority to determine parentage: the adoption court, which is the probate court, and then we have parentage or paternity, which is the juvenile court. That's where you get your DNA tests done and your child support established for parents that aren't married. The domestic court is different than the juvenile court because the domestic court deals with people that are married at the time of the child's birth. So we get all of our laws from merry old England, and there is a law that is basically just a legal fiction or a convenient truth that says if a man and woman are married and the woman becomes pregnant and has a child during the marriage, it is the husband's child because all women are faithful. That is the rebuttable presumption. So if the kid comes out looking like the mailman, and these days, if we have a DNA test that demonstrates that he's not the father, then that presumption can be rebutted by the fact that a third party created the child, and then that person would be held accountable for that child's life. However, also, since time immemorial, straight people have had trouble conceiving. Jesus. So in the event that a straight couple consents to a third party being introduced in the form of an egg or sperm to create a child that is then born during the marriage, so long as you can demonstrate that the non-providing parent consented and that there was a doctor involved in the process, we call that a medical intermediary, and the parents were married at the time of the birth, then we have what's called a second parent determination, which is more like checking the box, which says, court, we did all these things right. Here's the marriage certificate. Here's the doctor's information. Here's our information about the birth certificate. Here's the signed consent form from the other parent. We did everything right, but we're gay. We're a same-sex couple. We're two women. However, the Supreme Court in Obergefell said you had to treat our marriages the same. So under equal protection, because we had the child during our marriage and because I consented to the other party providing their sperm or egg, we are entitled to equal protection under the law and the marital presumption. So we cite the right laws, we submit all that information, and in Franklin County, it's what we call a walkthrough hearing, which means you don't even have to go to court. The judge just signs the proposed entry. And the difference of having this as opposed to just a birth certificate with both your names on it is that a birth certificate, like a marriage certificate, is a state-based document, which is why before Obergefell, marriage certificates could be issued in California and were just paper in Ohio. However, even the most originalist constitutional interpreter can find the full faith and credit clause in our Constitution, which says, we, the states, agree that if another state sees fit to give an entry or a court order, we, the other states, will respect it as if it was ours. Full faith and credit. We will give it full faith and credit, whatever the decree is. So this second parent determination, just like an adoption decree, says these are the only parents of the child, period, signed, judge. And that document allows you to cross state lines for vacation or move if you want to leave Ohio, because that document will maintain its integrity across state lines.
Wow. You are a teacher.
Yes, yes, I am. I still have my I don't know if you can see it. Right here is my capital name tag.
Now, tell us about the legal process of name change,
Sure.
especially within the LGBTQ community.
Well, I mean, honestly, it's no different from anyone else's except for the fact that it's incredibly important. So, name changes are done typically when you are working with someone who is transgender, who has understood that their preferred name and pronouns are either masculine, feminine, or somewhere in between. You as an individual are allowed to call yourself Trash Can McFanny if you want to. The only reason you're not allowed to change your name is if you're hiding from the cops or you're hiding from your creditors. And you have to specifically sign an affidavit that says you're not. And then again, in Franklin County, they used to have to like fill in the blank about like why you want to change your name. And we would always say, because this is my preferred name, I want to use it in all my documents and I want to have clarity across my legal documents. But now it just says gender identity and we check the box because we've done so many of these. Typically there's a filing fee if you can't. So if there's someone who's watching this that wants to follow up, there's plenty. And then also is the same court will also update your gender marker. So gender marker male or female assigned at birth. There are some courts in Columbus, in Ohio, of the 88 counties we work in, there are some courts that are appealing the judgment saying that you have to update it, saying that it was correct at the time of birth. So it shouldn't be updated, but that's just mean bullshit. So whatever. But gender marker correction, you can also apply to have your gender marker updated to reflect your correct gender at the same time as the Bureau of Vital Statistics updates your name change. And again, in Franklin County, at least, these are walkthrough hearings because we do so many of them now. They don't even have us into court. If you sign everything and file the filing fee, they'll sign it and you'll get it out. And yeah, you go from there.
Thank you. How about the process of changing or amending a birth certificate to reflect a new gender or even a new name?
Yeah, so gender marker corrections are another process that the probate court will undergo. Again, you just have to indicate that you are changing it for your correct gender identity. And again, in Franklin County, it's really simple, but in other counties, they have their own forms and their own issues. So you'd have to probably get a lawyer to look into that. But once you have the entry saying the gender could be corrected, you present that form along with your name change form to the Bureau of Vital Statistics and get a whole new birth certificate printed. And then you take that to the passport office and then the Social Security office, just like every bride has to do when she changes her name. Just to update the people that need to know about your correct preferences. The only thing I will note is that if you are working with a provider for healthcare that is not familiar with your transgender status, because of the way that medical coding is, having a certain gender or another can preclude you from getting certain male or female related medical procedures. So that's something you want to discuss with your doctor before engaging a lawyer, or at least before changing information with your insurance company.
Thank you. What are those challenges that you've experienced as an attorney advocating for LGBTQ rights?
Well, it's kind of been, it depends on the person, really. Every attorney on the other side, every judge, every bailiff is coming with their own preconceived set of notions about the LGBT community, either from themselves, somebody they know, my brother, my sister, whoever. And some people come with, like I said, tolerance, acceptance, celebration. On the other side, enmity, rage. But I will say the only challenges that I experience are people who aren't willing to meet me halfway. Because even if you're a bigot and a horrible person, I'm still willing to treat you as an individual who's worthy of love and grace. But if you, and that's something I always say to my clients is I'm nice first. Nice until nice doesn't work anymore. Or they demonstrate to me that they're not worthy of my grace. And then we hit them once and they better stay down. And if they get back up, we'll hit them again so hard they can't get back up. So that's how I deal with people who are difficult when it comes to the fact that I'm a lesbian or that I represent a transgender person or whomever. I'm nice first. I try to educate. I try to meet them in the middle. But as soon as they demonstrate that they are not worthy, I will move them out of my way and stop them from the harm they are creating, including but not limited to what's in my area. So that's how I deal with it.
Tell us about the rewards of being a unique attorney.
Lots of gifts. Like, I have so many like drawings and things and stuff, and I have a purse. Oh, you can't see it here. I have a purse here that was payment for a thing. It's gorgeous. You know, I get to meet people's families and dogs. I get to sit and hold their kids while talking to them about their wills. I mean, I get to dictate the truth in my life, and that's a level of grace and peace that I have not encountered doing anything else in this practice. The reality is that I am following my heart, and my heart breaks for people who suffer needlessly. So that includes the impoverished, that includes, you know, the children, that includes the gay people, that includes the immigrants, that includes people of color, that includes everybody except who's sitting at the top benefiting from all our hard work. So if I can help, I'm going to, for my salvation, if not for theirs.
Thank you. Did you ever reconcile with your mom before she passed? Did she ever accept you for who you are or you are?
Yes. Yeah. My mom did not come to my first wedding, which was pre-Obergefell, big dress, you know, the whole thing. But she did come to my second wedding at the courthouse. I don't know how she even found out it was happening. She was living in a retirement home for old people at the time because her body had broken down such to the extent that she couldn't really care for herself. And she had talked some guy into driving her to the courthouse, and she stood there and she actually signed my marriage certificate along with all the other people that were there. And I hated her for it at the time. Like, why are you here? Like, why are you trying after all this time, after you've lost everything, you're just trying to get back? It was a hard time for me. And it's only looking back now that I've lost her for a couple of years, and now that I don't have the ability to pick up and call her when I'm having trouble with my kid. I never got to tell her that I forgave her, but I keep her picture out by my chair when I hang out and watch the birds and the stars. And every time I sing, I think of her because she was a worship leader. And yeah, I forgive her in my heart every day, Emmanuel. And the little nicks and bruises that I forgot about or covered over that my son is slowly but surely revealing, just give me that much more chance to fill those holes with love. So yeah, I forgive her every day, and I love her every day.
It's all about love. You were raised in a religion that preaches love. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love is the greatest law of all.
Yep.
And then you found yourself in a situation where the same love was used to reject you. How do you reconcile that faith with who you are now? And what elements of your religious upbringing still inform or inspire how you practice or you deal with people?
So I reconcile it in the spirit. Okay, so I reject the natural, the male, the formal, the contextualized, the book of it all. I reject that. I follow my own prayerfulness, my own faithfulness, my own intentionality. I check myself against my values a lot because I can be impetuous. And I follow the spirit, and I allow, when the spirit moves, I talk to the person that they're telling me to talk to, or I make a right instead of a left, those little decisions you make that may mean nothing, but suddenly mean everything. And I meditate. I listen to, every morning I have a practice where I listen to a meditation before I get out of bed, just to get my head right. And I spend a lot of time with my wife, and I spend a lot of time with my family, and that's how I practice my religion, is acts of love. And even love towards myself by affirming intentions or wins by giving myself permission to follow a butterfly. You're loving yourself, and how important is that? You have to fill your own cup before you can pour into anyone else. So
You have to fill yourself first before you can pour into someone else. So, what advice do you have for like a young person going through what you went through at the age of 17 or struggling with acceptance, rejection because of their sexuality?
mm-hmm. My advice is do it scared. You don't get a choice about being brave sometimes. Sometimes it is thrust upon you, in the words of the bard. You have a choice about how you react to people. And if you're going through any of the things I went through, you're getting a lot of negativity thrown your way, and you get a choice about how you respond and your character and your integrity. And yeah, be brave. Don't do it scared. And you'll come out on the other side knowing that you are able to survive much more than you were ever told you could, and that you are bigger and braver, and your impact is going to be so huge. And the more you allow yourself to be broken down and to have those pieces that have been glued to you taken off, once the pain of transition is over, baby, you're a butterfly.
Butterfly has to go through that pain of transition before it becomes that beautiful flying bug that we all know.
Love it. Yes, I'm here for it. Follow your butterflies. That's what you. That's your word of advice.
Yes. What is it like being a parent of a 2-month-old baby?
Well, he's a 12-month-old baby, but I've had him. He's 12 years old. I've had him for 2 months. So being a parent of a 12-year-old is crazy, because he is non-binary bisexual, which I don't even know how that works, but he is pink-haired. He is beautiful. I love him. My wife and I are just completely smitten. He's dirty. He's messy. He always leaves a sock in a room. And he's just the light of our lives. He loves to fish, loves to play football, loves to motorcycle, loves to draw, loves to sing. Really into like rap. God help me. Thank heavens. I mean, I bet my parents would have paid money, but in the car where you can move the music to the rear, thank heavens for that. That thing has been ripe. But yeah, no, it's been great. And we're learning every day. And everybody's like, oh, that's normal. That's normal. And I'm like, I will literally murder him. But I'm not going to, because I love him dearly. I'm going to murder him with kisses.
Yes, murder him with kisses.
He's the cutest when he's unconscious. I don't know if that's how you feel about your family, but.
So, when did you discover your love for music and playing the guitar?
Well, I mean, my family sings. We've always sang. My Mimi's a singer, my whole family. So I actually picked up the guitar much later in life in college, because I thought that lesbians played guitar. With, come to my window, vary that. And I thought that was what you did. So I picked up a guitar. I taught myself how to play it on like YouTube, and would like sit and like listen to songs and like write down like C, G, and I know exactly 6 chords. And I play mostly slow songs because that's how fast I can change. But I've always had a passion for music. And then the violin is aspirational. I was a huge fan of Sherlock Holmes growing up. The idea that you could sit there and think your way to a solution, and he would play the violin and, smoke a big old pipe and whatever. And so I don't play the violin, but I think it's beautiful. And I bought it on eBay when I was 15. So there it is.
Oh, there you are.
We got to do karaoke sometime, Emmanuel. You got to bring your A game.
Oh, sure. Did you ever have any kind of conflict within yourself when you were younger, accepting who you were?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. As soon as I understood what was happening and that was a part of me, and that it was different than everyone else. Because again, I didn't have any context for how anyone else was feeling because we didn't talk about it. We talked about the future marital Christian love, right? So as soon as I recognized that something in me was different and was kind of angled towards women, where most people was angled towards men, I buried it. I was horrified. I was like, oh shoot, no one better find out about this. So I just became really good at abstinence. I was just a really good Christian, for I was a really good lesbian. And I dated boys. I would find like a nice introverted guy who thought I was the world, and I would take him to prom, but like I would spend more time hanging out with his mom because her and I have more in common, you know. But yeah, I had dated boys, but again, dated in the Christian school. Like we weren't allowed to hold hands because holding hands and sweating made babies. So like so uninformed, Emmanuel. So it was kind of easy to hide in plain sight because a lot of people weren't having sex. But then once you get to college and once you kind of get out from under the overhang of your parents, it's like, oh, and I'm not alone. It's okay to come out now.
Wow. That must have been some kind of struggle as a young
Well, yeah,
person.
because then I was in the army at that point, Emmanuel. So when it was finally okay to come out, it was not okay to come out because my entire tuition was riding on me being in the closet and a lieutenant. So yeah,
Wow.
it was a tough road. I don't know why I have to pick the hardest one, but go figure.
Yeah, well, it built you. It made you who you are now.
Yeah,
And like I said,
totally.
it gives you insight into both side. And
Yes.
so when you're advocating, you know what you're talking about. If you want to
Yeah,
talk about the Bible, you know the Bible inside out. If
I
you want to
do.
talk about the innate you, the
Bible
inner
Bowl
feelings.
champion. I am Bible Bowl champion 2001. No, it's great because also if I one day ever want to be a legislator, it allowed me to reach across the aisle and come to some sort of compassion and understanding. You know, hopefully one day.
Okay. How can people reach you?
Oh, I am on most legal platforms at Hannah Botkin-Doty or Hannah's Legal Help. If you ever have a question or need legal help, the first call is always free. And if we decide to work together, then that'll be great. But yeah, 614-271-4563 is my phone number. Or you can reach out at hannahslegalhelp.com.
Thank you. And what does it mean for you to come on this show to talk about who you are, what you do, and to
Whew,
educate the community?
yeah, it has been some therapy, Mr. Olawale. Thank you very much for that. No, your questions have been so poignant and so interesting. And I honestly didn't think I was coming in to talk about a lot of that stuff, but I think it was been an amazing time to sort of crack open some of the legal complexities. And then also at the same time, some of the legal simplicities, the easy things we can do to make people's access to justice. So this is one more thing where we're going to give people access to justice and access to individuals who know what they're talking about. And again, please follow up. The help and the resources are out there. And if I can't help you, I'll pass you along to somebody who can.
Thank you. And thank you for coming on the show. And for those of you watching, listening, tuning in, we thank you for your time. Until next time, stay blessed. Bye for now.
Come to my window.